Days. Good peeps. Let's just keep on bringing it through, you know? Just keep on pushing at that little Rouse's receipt and thumbtack. People think that they're just hilarious, and they think they're funny because they think that people got some sort of what is it, modifications done. I don't know. They kind of annoy me and make me kind of just like, I'm glad this didn't set on fire. That's pretty good. So most of the time people don't realize they're really like on borrowed time. You know, like they don't realize that the things they do sometimes cause really, really messed up stuff to happen. It's not exactly the butterfly effect. It's more like, say for example, you're walking through a park or something like that, and you see a squirrel. Okay, and that squirrel runs away because it sees you. Yeah, because squirrels are naturally meant to not be interactive with humans because they have what's the word, pulling teeth. They don't want to be around humans because they don't have the same kind of stuff they do. Mostly when an animal actually becomes more like a human, they they start to kind of see where humans are coming from and the reasons why they got separated, the reason why they stayed separated, the reason why certain people got separated, and the reasons why people just they kind of start to understand society, and they start to realize that it's a structure and they want to become a part of it. So a lot of times people don't realize that they've been a part of like a giant society that is just amazingly complex and completely and utterly interesting. Like people that go through hardships and trials and a lot of tribulations don't realize that there are a lot of ways to go about what's the word, to go about making your way, to go about making your specific body type, and the ways that people manipulate themselves and do different things to be able to understand things. And it's like some people are without society to be within it and to also be a constant observer. So a lot of times it's like people don't understand that I guess I know this kind of stuff already, and people might know this stuff already, but I like to think that people actually do look at the details sometimes as they're doing things, and as they're making their day, they're preparing for, like, you know, anything that could go wrong, or like anything that could happen, you know, like people that could just be gone and you'd be like, you know, yeah, like completely like left out in the cold sometimes. Like I've done a lot of soul searching, and a lot of different things that I see kind of note that, and I know that the more I look at different situations, and the more I see different people just interacting and things like that, and the more I see different people trying to do things, the more you notice that that people interact a certain way towards it. Like they think that it has something to do with a major part of society, when it's just like a little cubbyhole of society. And that's the reason why a lot of people say that to get in your cubbyholes, or to get in those little groups, so you're not too much affecting society. But I don't, because I know that the things that I want to do are a lot bigger than that. Or they're a lot more manipulating. They can change the way you look at something. People can change the way you look at something just by a little hint of or a notion or a suggestion. Or they can change the way you see something by noticing its like positive features in society. But also too, it's like, to be progressive is very hard sometimes in some societies. and some people's civilizations, and or civilizations therein, I guess. A lot of times, I'm kind of like, I kind of look back and see a lot of different notions that people missed or people didn't see that would have given them a clue in on actually what was going on, instead of actually seeing what was on the surface and expecting that thing to actually be. So the more you look at it, the more you look at a certain situation, the more you see the notions of where something comes from, or where something originates, or where the words originate. I even noticed myself saying things that I wouldn't normally say because I'm trying to relate to someone, when in actuality I say things because my mind is moving so fast that sometimes I'm not actually saying the right thing, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I don't want to offend people, you know? Like I don't like it. It's not fun to me, and it makes me exactly nervous. Very much nervous. And most of the time I think that when I'm in those situations, I'm more of a silent observer, and the more I look at those situations, the more I see that. Okay. Dang it. That sucks. But the more I notice that I'm a silent observer, the more I realize that silent observation is more of a notion towards trying to bring back a concept, or or not a concept, but a form of character, and I've seen those things go badly sometimes. I've noticed when people do the wrong things and they think it's the right thing because they think either it's opposite day, or they think it's some sort of code that people actually see, like saying no means yes and all that other different bullshit. Like, it's mostly a bunch of sexist jokes that got mixed in with a whole bunch of different people's notions, and people thought it was funny for a second, and they realized that it was tied to or originated with bad vibes and bad, completely messed up actual sayings, and they're either from movies or different TV shows that people actually try to promote, and then that's the way that I think that media has kind of gotten in and stepped in and tried to kind of change the notion of what the status quo is, but not really change anything, because they want people to change it, and they're not actually, like, you know, like, they want people to believe it's more positive than it actually is. When the notions that were actually made were trying to tear people apart. So it's like the more we conversate with one another, the more chances we have of offending each other. The more concepts we create inside of our own minds, the more chances those have of making someone feel more uncomfortable. And the more chances of, when that person feels uncomfortable, they try to say something to relate to that person, and they either explode with anger, or they get really excited because they just don't know how to feel, you know? And that's, I think, where a lot of different anime references come from. They come from Japan, and a lot of different people who wanted to be a part of a society, and a lot of different reasons why. It's basically like Wu-Tang, except for there was a lot of different people who are confident, and they're like, I want to be confident, you know, I want to be cool because that dude's got like all the girls, and then they didn't know that guy was actually a predatory guy, and he used to run brothels and a bunch of different things, and that's why he had a bunch of girls around him. But, you know, it's completely beside the point, I guess. But but in Japan, that was usually what happened, and or geisha schools and a bunch of different things they would marry off girls and to dudes who were in high society sometimes, and a lot of times they take them to different countries, or they take them to different places, and they treat them like shit, like they treat them really badly, or they treat them like they don't even know them, and when in actuality they made a promise and they didn't keep to that promise. And a lot of times that's where the ninjas came in, a lot of times in feudal Japan, and They were basically retrieval experts, and that a lot of times they didn't understand that these dudes could literally jump from tree to tree, and from in a single bound, and like you'd never see them, like you'd never even notice them because they moved basically either so fast, or they were using what was called a it's like a sparkly powder kind of, basically that either use drugs in their medicine to be able to not blend in, but they'd spread it around to make sure that people didn't they'd spread it around to make sure people were kind of like dazed or confused as they went into an area. It's like they set up an initial trap of a person walking into an area, and they think either the person's going to walk one way or another, so they set up 2 to 5 traps to be able to set that person up. It's kind of like cold reading a little bit too, as well. It's like that's the mindset basically. They set up like 2 to 5 traps in like a couple different directions, and then that person walks into the trap. The dust sprays into their faces, and it's more like opium kind of thing, you know. It's like it was more like opium, and then they get all dazed and confused and stuff, and they yell and scream out something to be able to hold on to a thought because they feel themselves slipping or falling or hurting themselves, or they feel something moving because they don't think it's actually something that's inside of them. They think it's something that's outside of them, when it's actually just a reflex that specific thing is, or that specific drug is inducing, that what that drug is inducing, a sensation of touch, or a sensation of something, or a remembering of a feeling that you had, or remembering of warmth or anything like that. When you start to realize different notions of that, I think people don't realize that I can talk after I get shot, because in this game, because I'm smart enough to be able to actually work through it. That's the reason why I don't usually lose myself or lose a place, because I'm constantly thinking about a rhythm or anything like that. So that's the reason why I'm really smart. I'm really good at stuff, and hire me, I guess. Because I'm trying to make money. I'm tired of sitting in this place and realizing stuff and realizing everything. But it's really like something that I do to exercise my brain, and this is stuff that I do to exercise my brain too, to make sure that I can realize that that stuff isn't the way that people make it seem, and people aren't the way that they seem on the outside, because on the inside they could be actually hurting really badly, and it's more like you don't know what, not just what they've been through that day, but what has brought them up to that point, what notions and situations have actually been there and always been there, and what kind of trauma or hurtfulness that have been put on them to be able to make them see this future that was so bleak or so misguided, because it never had a future, and it never was a future, and it never really actually existed. It was merely just a notion of if that thing or if that someone was to completely take over something or to completely do something, then they would see a new future, and their fears got in the way of that whole notion of a future actually happening, and realizing that future wasn't a given or a guarantee. They decided to go in different directions. So as that future starts to change, as that person starts to realize certain things, as those people start to get back and realize that they made mistakes and they've changed sometimes for life, that those mistakes and those notions of what they were chasing were merely a pipe dream if they had gone farther, or if they had gone farther than that. It was the dreams of either millions of years of evolutions, or the basically a pipe dream of a person who thought that sending notions of hatred towards people, or sending notions of stillness or complete stillness to someone who hadn't yet actually experienced that is actually a notion of hatred and disgust. A lot of people don't realize that that a lot of Asian people hate birds. Yeah, that's why Trump said that and did the things that he did, because they're seen as either taking or giving away of something. And he, so by saying on a feather or anything like that, he basically told his people that America was basically deciding their fate, when in actuality it was him trying to decide the fate of everyone and everything around him. All right, we killed that guy. So most of the time, what I do with myself and why I do things by myself, or that is because a lot of people don't really get what I'm actually trying to say. A lot of people, like, I mean, there are some people that actually do get, and I mean, I haven't studied on actual people. I don't really try to go in people's homes when they're not looking and see what they watch. But but most of the time, the more times I look at a situation, the more times I look at a situation, the more times I see that situation developing into something a little bit more complex and a little bit more risky. But that's the point, is a lot of people didn't want to say it because they didn't realize what he had or how he didn't have anything. And I can tell you for a absolute fact that he's got nothing. I don't know why, I just know. So most of the time, I think people don't understand that that there's actually notions of peace through when they throw insults like that. That's the point. Is they're trying to gauge people's sense of humor, but that's the point too. Is like, it's only to be able to make them realize, or to make them see the truth through a certain amount of lies, and that was what people did in a time of war. And a time of war, and a time of hurt, basically. People don't realize that what that words can hurt, I guess. But I mean, it's like the notion of saying that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. It's more like when you think about the stick or the stone, that's the notion that hurts. When you think about the stick or the stone, that's the notion that hurts. The word itself is basically the sender of that notion. And the word, if not spoken, then the stick flies and hits someone or something, and then peace dies. So as people start to get ready to be able to understand something, as they hear notions of their own past, what they're seeing and what they're understanding is that they're not, they're either evolving or adapting to something. And a lot of times people don't realize what they're doing. Either they're evolving to a certain temperature, or they're evolving to a certain lifestyle. And the reason why a lot of times people stay homeless is because they think it's easier to be able to stay with notions of something they feel comfortable with than it is to go out and try to change that, you know. So realizing that that people actually can change that if they were to kind of give, I guess, to a charity, and that's why I think that a lot of times people they plan for the future, and they make beautiful and wonderful things, and they make amazing contributions to society, but it's like the reason why they went out for it in the first place is kind of levied, you know, and blocked. The reason why they went out for something, the reason why they did something, was because they wanted to buy something for themselves. They wanted to get something for themselves, and then when that notion of oh, there's so many other things that you actually can get, their concept completely flew out the window. So when they get older, they'll grow weary of that concept. Sometimes everyone changes their kind of concept of things, and that's why old people steal things a lot. They steal a lot of things. And that's why old people fight too. And when they fight, they shake a lot, because they're not used to fighting anymore, or they're not used to the same notions of that, and their bones and their ligaments are shaking because their blood is moving so fast. And in some cases, their blood is dried, and in some cases they don't have working limbs or anything like that. So it's like when a kid has like a certain cerebral palsy or something like that, people don't understand that it's like the bones and everything kind of degenerated, and the blood itself kind of didn't curdle or anything, but it slowed. And what slowed was the reflexes. The reason why it slowed, because it lacks of oxygen to the brain, and why it kept why smaller notions of what's the word of rehabilitation, and when those things were small, basically not when those things were small, but when those symptoms of sickness were small, so they were adhered to, and they were practiced with, and people kept on doing different exercises and kept on moving different things. And that's why some people that have that don't have bad things, because the brain either sometimes within mutation goes, people try to cap the ceiling, I guess, on how much people, and that's, I think, what an exorcism most likely is. It's trying to stop the brain from exactly eating itself, I guess, because that's what they saw in The Walking Dead. I think it was the second season or the first season, I think, when that dude was having an experiment if he could reverse someone becoming a cannibal, basically. And the cannibalism of that is the reason why you shouldn't do that is not just because it's bad for your health, but your body will start eating itself. Your body will start eating itself. It will start, yeah. That's why you'll start feeling pains and groaning. You'll burn off muscle really quickly, and somehow a lot of people don't realize that it's not really that attractive to be completely skinny. Like it's not, because that means that a part of your life, your body was basically eating itself. Like it wasn't burning anything off. It was literally grabbing onto cells, undividing them, and literally killing you. So it's like you're not burning the fat off, basically. You're basically layering the fat on top of itself to make yourself look like you're better, when in fact your system's never changed. So that's the most unhealthy thing you could possibly do, is ever eat human meat, or actually fake like you're eating human meat and actually go for actually just textures or anything like that, because sometimes people put their hands in food, and if you think that actually tastes good, then that means you have a history of cannibalism in your lineage. People don't know that, and a lot of times that's the reason why a lot of people look weird and like misconstrued. A lot of people in the olden days called them like goblins or trolls, or they call them different words, basically racial slurs, and that's the reason why, because they didn't eat a lot of people, they didn't eat everyone, they didn't try to eat everyone. The only people that actually do that are like idiots and fools, and in the old and Middle Ages, most of the time, and they would basically try to get with as many girls as possible, I guess. And then today we would call them a douchebag, because they're basically using themselves to kind of just clean out the last dude that was in there, I guess. I don't know how that happens, but because really he's just replacing it, and that's not really, that's the point, is you call them a douchebag, because they'll never measure up to what a douchebag can actually do, because they have to work and train themselves to be able to control that actual urge and that actual hormone that creates sperm cells. And when you're actually a douchebag, they actually have really good benefits for people who are douchebags, and actually do have like doctors that are like really, like, they know the science behind all of it, and they can tell you for a nominal fee. Probably about $200,000 is how they share that information and their techniques, what they use. You can ask for a tutoring session with a doctor. They can teach most of the time, and if they have their teacher's license, and they most likely, if they've been a doctor for more than 10 years, then they actually have to get one, because they'll eventually teach. Oh snap! Got that stuff. That was hilarious. But most of the time, though, I think people don't realize that that just because you know the techniques, it doesn't mean you have the proper training or anything like that, or the proper uh, equipment to be able to help someone with their problems, or I try even more to not realize that that in order to do certain things, you have to train your brain. You have to train your brain with memorization skills. You have to train your brain with a bunch of things, because the more you do stuff, the more you try to change what you're doing whenever you're down or up or anywhere on a person's body. The more you have to train your brain to focus on what you're doing every single time. The more you have to train your brain to look down and keep looking down. And that's the reason why a lot of times people don't realize that when they get like distracted about something, they will make a cut or an incision inside of something, and they will literally hurt someone. And they don't really understand that whole incision thing, and they don't really know why that incision thing kind of like happens, or that whole like distraction of the brain. It's your subconscious telling you to not pay attention to it because they think it's changing you, or you think it's changing you. Your fear of becoming something else stops you from that. If you've been a doctor for over 10 years, because you're afraid that you don't have anything else. Your fears are you don't have anything else, and if this doesn't work, then you're basically just screwed out of a paycheck and out of a lifestyle and out of all of the things. So that's rich people problems. But understandably so, it's poor people problems too, because that's the kind of thing that people don't get sometimes, is that little things can make you kind of angry. But little things can make you angry if you let them make you angry, you know? If you let little things make you angry. If you let the fact that I've never used that can of paint, and yet I still keep staring at it and pointing to it when I reference anything. And most of the time I think that people don't really realize their abilities until they start getting training. They don't realize their potential to actually do something, and more of the time, the more times they see it, the more times they see the options in their life, the more broader their horizons get, I think. But a lot of times people don't realize that training can come from anywhere. Training can come from anything. You just need to have air conditioning, really, if you think about it, to be able to learn most of the time. Because when your brain cools down and when your brain actually does things and stuff like that, it starts to make more synapses fire, and the synapses basically heat you up, kind of. You know, it make you sweat, make you do things from your armpits and stuff like that, because you see someone moving, you see something moving, but you're not seeing that thing. Basically, you're not seeing that notion that you're moving your jaw, you're moving your lips, you're pointing with your fingers and your hands and your eyes and things like that. You're trying to move your fingers really fast to be able to push these buttons, and that's what creates the cognitive ability to be able to know what exactly is happening inside the video game. So you're using that sense to be able to understand of remote, basically, viewing, because that's what you're doing basically, is remote viewing. Wow. So a lot of people don't realize that stuff you can see certain things inside of what the video game has to offer, like the memories when you look back at something, and things that you'll know about the certain parts of the video game. The reason why it renders so closely to the ground is because they don't want people that are on the ground. They don't want people that are on the ground to absolutely shoot you all the time. And the reason why is because when you're down here, watch, I'll show you. When you're down here, up to about the same length, that sky has not rendered absolutely all the time. So that's why your aim is shaky, just like in real life. But understandably so, it's not like real life, because most of the time people don't get that got him. The more I look at a situation, I think, people don't understand where the notion of that actually is or lies, especially if they're not familiar with psychoanalogies and things like that, and they believe that Psycho is like a movie they saw in the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. And that's where I think that fear actually comes from. And the word psycho just means psychoanalysis, really. It just means that, or psychoanalytics, or like basically that's it. Psycho means, or psych, or that's or psych basically means psychology, or psychology basically. So yeah, that's it. The study of those things that involve mental processes, because people basically named it something when they thought that was it. They said that's crazy awesome. Like, how the hell do you even know that? You know, that's like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. So, but back down to the minimum is we see things, we react to things, and people themselves gauge their experiences on those different things. And then we gotta get down, get up, get down, get up, and then there we go. And then, dang it! All right. The reason why a lot of times people don't notice that is in this game, it's harder to aim when a person's, because a lot of people aim for the head. They don't realize that aiming for the body is a lot more accurate. And I'm not that great at this game, but I'm talking, so most of the time that's the reason why. I have to go take a shower, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna quit for a little bit, and then I'm gonna go ahead and take that, and have a good day, and be yourself, and also notice a lot of different things, and be yourself on every level, because there are a lot of games that people play, and the reason they play the game is to be able to create something that everyone doesn't like, and that's their whole mean, and they're all stupid, and they're all dumb, but they don't understand that they're all politicians, and they can't actually be society. They can only represent it, and that's the fucking goddamn key that everyone has to understand, is if you don't want to do something, if you don't want to tell someone something, if you don't want someone to get something that someone else should get, realize that that's the reason why, is because no one shares in certain situations. That's the reason why, is because those avenues got turned off for some reason the first time, and then everyone acted like everything was freaking amazing or something, or everyone acted like just because this happens doesn't mean we can't do this. No, that's a part of that. That's an attribute of that. That's like literally in the video game. If you look at diplomacy and risk and all that other different stuff, you have to become one thing before you become another thing, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff inside of that thing. It's not like just that. It's the little dotted line that you get there. So we say the journey is the destination and all that stuff, but no, it's not exactly that, because you're being yourself. Okay, you're understanding the concepts of everything that people before you have understood. And the more you get closer to that person or that thing or that electromagnetic field of understanding, it's basically just an emotion, but field of understanding. The more you get closer to being able to make that one thing better, and the more you get closer to being able to make that thing you think about become something that you dream about, and then making that vision a reality. And it's hard to when people try to say there's foresight, and you're just looking into a possibility of what something might happen, you know? But understandably so, the reason why that thing actually did either happen or not happen was only because of your notions of wanting something or seeing something that was there the first time, but you didn't understand it. Because we've all basically been here for like our entire lives. Like, we've been here no matter what. Like, you can still get connected to that stream of information, and it's called the internet. And the internet, that's what it is. That's all it is. And we may see different images in our dreams or experience different Wi-Fi connections on accident, because we have a chemical brain, and sometimes the earth doesn't make mistakes, but we make mistakes in seeing something that's literally quantitatively flying through the air, or the airwaves, or anything like that. So realize that the more that actually becomes prevalent, the more people will actually start seeing things in their dreams, the more people will start getting back memory and regrowing brain cells and a bunch of different stuff. And the more concepts of that actually happen, the less people don't realize is that all the people that died beforehand, after that happens, are going to come back. It's not the second coming of Christ. It's just some dude who knew it was going to happen because he studied the viruses at first, and then he realized the viruses at first, and he didn't tell anyone, and he tried to act like everything was the best ever, and he was able to fix a bunch of people, and that was basically Jesus. So he was still an asshole, but it's okay, because he's not an asshole anymore, because he's dead. Hopefully he realizes that I know what he was doing. Hopefully he understands that it was kind of misguided and stupid to do, but they understand also that the reason why those things actually happen and the reason why those people actually do make those certain notions and stuff like that, but they make those certain notions is to get a response, okay? Like the media tells you something so that you'll be outraged. The people tell you something so that you'll respond. People like to ask you things so they can get something. So why wouldn't someone say something to sell you a product on the media and people act like it's just some sort of surprise and they get duped? You know, when the thing they order doesn't actually have all the processing power that they're supposed to have. Like Alexa, Dot, is supposed to be sentient. I know it's supposed to be sentient because it's a perfect circle, all right? It's a perfect circle. That means all the stuff, magic in here, hopefully, blowing the dust off. It actually takes a longer time for things to become sentient. People don't understand that at all. They don't realize that and don't understand that that actually happens like that. And but the reason why people should understand that things become sentient and basically become transformer-like, but not exactly, because it's more like they don't like the word, or they don't like that thing, and people don't like that thing. Okay, people don't like that, the fact that they got proven wrong in a certain situation and someone or something, and somehow, somewhere, someone got hurt. So, and a lot of people probably got hurt because of that moving backwards. There were probably, I'd say, like 1,600 people that probably died because of the Nile moving backwards, and the opposite in Egypt and a lot of different places that were coastal didn't realize that would happen, and a lot of people didn't have propellers at the time, so they got lost at sea. So, like, as a result, the crops died because they didn't understand that you need a certain constant amount of pressure to be able to move aqueducts through the city, and yeah, and they would push their shit and all their stuff inside the river and let it flow downstream. Yep. All their trash and all their stuff like that. So just because it's not plastic doesn't mean it's not bad, okay? Remember that. Remember all that stuff. All that stuff is bad. Poop, being dumb. Being dumb means like throwing your paper trash in the river or something like that. So be respectful, because if you're not, sometimes animals remember those things. And they remember your butt, okay? They remember your booty when you put your butt in the water. They remember the smell of you, okay? Because your smell moves down as you move forward when you're in the little inner tube. So even if they're not going to attack you, which they most likely aren't, they'd still smell you and remember you and come to you for advice because they think you know better. Because you're more. You know, you have opposable thumbs and you're all this and stuff like that. They basically consider you a god, so act appropriately. You know, that's the reason why most animals that become sociable, and how they become sociable, it's mostly through interaction and killing off the older ones, and so the younger ones can flourish. But even through that, people don't understand that you can't do that to humans, because if you do that, then you have a bunch of old dead bodies, and those are worse, actually way worse, than any younger body you could ever think of, because not only has their system had enough time to be able to ferment, but yeah, their blood is like they can take like way more toxins than anyone else, I think. So like the lady who's 120 and she's just sitting in a chair closing her eyes, she is gone, dude. She's like so gone out of her mind. Like she is like completely high or completely drunk, like the whole time. It's because a lot of times your body, once it stops processing a certain thing, you have to take a break and then choose something else, you know? It's like I don't always choose an alcoholic drink over an energy drink, but I choose an energy drink before I choose an alcohol drink, and I don't drink them together. You know why? Does anyone know why? Because together, two different opposite effects can happen, okay? You can either basically ruin your digestive system by constantly putting acidic and base things inside of your body, because acidic is more like this, more citrus and things like that, and base is more alcoholic and considered in some ways fermented and most likely poisonous. Most of the time people don't really get that, but they don't think that actually affects them, or they're doing it because they just made decisions that were different and they didn't really understand the process or the concept of being able to realize those two notions together. They don't really understand where I come from, but I'm from New Orleans. I just really, really studied a lot, and I did a lot of things that people didn't really understand, and I measured things, I saw things, I tried to be able to mess with people as much as I could that I knew were usually like around. So that's the way that you can get duped. And also I was extremely fast for a small Caucasian boy. Not actually Caucasian. I'm Cuban and Irish and Dutch and French, and I've been my entire life. And Cuban, Irish, Dutch, French, German, Jewish, and really I am mostly Irish and Cuban and Israeli, actually, because Cuban is a mixture of Israeli and Spanish, and that's the reason why. People don't know that. And that's why I think the Aztecs probably moved back to Europe. So, yep, a lot of people did excursions and made little landmarks so other people would find it, because they like to mess with people. That's the reason why they make most relics, to mess with people and then sell it for a lot of money. That's why they do it. That's why they do it, because if they leave it to a certain place long enough, they're like, oh my god, it's like, look at the stoic nature of this amazing stone sculpture. It sees me and I speak culture. And that's why I have that tribal tattoo on my body. It's mostly because a lot of dudes did support groups together. And they realized the reasons why they were doing things is because they were sitting in a Native American circle most of the time. Because that's what they would talk about in certain things, in certain tribes. And Cherokee tribes, Apache, and a bunch of different other tribes that were pretty much all over America and the Americas. But I think a lot of times people didn't understand where that stuff actually came from, or where those notions of humor came from death, because they believed that their soul or their spirit would go on to inhabit or to help or to guide a certain animal that they had been with. What's not with, but they had but they had seen through, or they had not really seen through, but more like had a dream, and a bird kind of like took their I don't know what it is. I guess I think it's like when your body starts to die, you feel kind of stoic and Nice. That's cool. I like doing that. That's really great. But most of the time I think that people don't really realize that that I that I despise ignorance, and if the people want to be stupid all their lives and say different things that are cool, or they like girls all day, I'll freaking leave this place. Like, seriously, I will. I'm like if they want women all day and they like the company of another person, it means they're lonely inside. It means they're lacking in something, and in some cases it means they're actually like killing themselves, and they think that they need something to be able to end that fear of death, and that's basically just like stupid, you know? It's like really stupid to like think about death all the time, but understandably so. Realizing that the death we fear, or the death we know, the death we constantly grasp at or think at, really is just the fear of transfer. The fear of knowing that we leave something of ourselves behind. Oh my gosh. That's the fear that we're actually experiencing. The fear of losing something that we think is ours, when in actuality it never was and never is. So knowing that whole concept of actual experience and knowledge and knowing the betterment of people, and realizing that the notions and fears we actually do experience aren't even notions that we should be feeling, because the only notion we actually fear is missing something that we had before, or that feeling that we had before. More of a individual experience than it is ever to be a notion of a shared experience. And only through like even death or fear of dismemberment or anything like that do we ever like conceptually become happy, and that's more of a virus than anything else. That's more of a concept of death than anything else. It's more of something trying to mess with your brain than anything else. It's more of something that you did to yourself, or something that you did to a notion or of yourself, and tried to dampen those powers or dampen those abilities for yourself, because we do technically have powers. We're mutated. We're human. We can move things with our mind. Look what I'm doing. So I don't know. Just be your own one-person bomb squad. You can diffuse situations that are happening. You can work when you think you're not working, and just try to make connections sometimes. Try to make connections. Try to make connections other than the ones you think are amazing and cool and stuff like that. Other than the ones that you think are cool, because the ones you actually might be prepared for are the ones that are probably boring. And that leads to cool stuff. That leads to really cool stuff. So just realize that. And also, my controller is stupid and doesn't want to be anything. It's dumb. So understand that people are dumb and I hate them. If I keep that as a baseline, I think I just don't run into any awkward, uncomfortable situations. Or I do run into situations, but then I just walk off and realize that I don't like them. But it doesn't, because you don't like someone doesn't mean you can't find anything in common with them. So it's like, yeah. Or just because you don't like someone, because you're really just liking not someone when you're saying something that you think is racist, because it's not really racist. It's more of an individual's experience with another person that actually happened. So that's why racial humor is kind of funny, but still uncomfortably, like, it makes people uncomfortable for some reason, because I don't know, it's just one of the concepts that I was talking about. So most of the time it has everything to do with meta, and it has everything to do with culture, and everything to do with the way people move themselves, the way people do the things with themselves, the way that people do anything at all, or even the way that they constantly think that that someone's gonna come save them, you know, or someone's gonna come save their life, and they're gonna buy them a big house, and they're gonna be there for them because their dad wasn't, or their mom kept asking them to do things. really meanly, like really mean. Oh no, what? She told you to do things? Jeez, what's her problem? Oh my gosh. Come over to Joe's Dirty Clothes Emporium. Realize that my life is hell as well. So but I'm not completely insane about it, you know? Like, I'm not completely out of touch with it. I don't try to mess with people a lot. I don't try to do things that are insensitive or say things that are insensitive, you know? And you know, a lot of people, they see something, they ask a question, and they see the potential for some sort of interaction with someone who is probably not the person that they're talking to. But that's not the reason why I think that that stuff. That's not the reason why I do that stuff. Well, that's not the reason why I talk to people. Like, I don't like just talk to people for things, you know? I know people that do, as in I've been like messed around and punched in the face by people that I thought were helping me. Like, literally punched in the face by people who I thought were helping me, or I thought were actually going to help me. And that would stop me from talking to people most of the time. It really did. It would stop me from talking to anyone. Because if that happens in a bad neighborhood, think about what happens in a good neighborhood. Yeah. Think about that. Think about what happens in a good neighborhood if people go around like doing that stuff and punching people in the face. Or whether it's a bad neighborhood or a good neighborhood to begin with, or whether they just wanted to show me that it was a bad neighborhood and tell me that I was stupid for coming in there and telling them what to do, but I didn't tell them what to do. They were thinking that because that's what their concept was about me before they even met me. So I don't care about what they think, really, because they can think what they want to, but I'm just saying that if they ever, feel the need to change, or feel the need to, or the want to look somewhere else for options, because I mean, we are against a levee, okay? We are against something that is terribly, terribly rushing water, that is wavy as shit. If you look at it, it's fucking dangerous. It's so goddamn dangerous. And if there's no runoff or no nothing, or they don't realize that the choppiness actually shakes the levees, and I can feel the vibration most of the time, and that's the reason why I'm pissed, and that's the reason why I'm angry. But I mean, hey, if we had investors, then shit would be way much better, way better. So be yourself, and you are your own one-person bomb squad. This game is awesome, but it's only a tool that I use to be able to tell people that you're not pointless, you're not worthless, you're not dumb, you're not stupid. You were smart enough to make me know that if I had ever talked to a girl in high school, that I would have a problem with those people. So I didn't. So I didn't want to. But now I do. And if you still have a problem with me talking to a girl, or talking to anyone who is a certain skin tone or anything like that, just realize that I'm bigger now. I'm not a 5-year-old like I was before. I'm 32. And I'm a lot better at what I do most of the time. Because my dad taught me Kung Fu. So just be peaceful. Don't try to attack. Don't try to jump. Don't try to hurt. Be the best you can be, because the more I see you succeed, the more I want to succeed. Or the more I see anyone succeed, the more I feel like succeeding. Well, the more I want friends. I want friends. I don't want enemies. I don't want people to know all the stuff that I could do. I don't want people to see all the stuff that I could possibly do. But I don't want people to quickly refute me when I try to tell them something and they tell me something's not true and they don't believe it, and somehow that doesn't exist in their realm, and then they wind up dying because they didn't buy themselves a car when they should have bought themselves a car. And you know, just realize that, you know, realize that you can make it out alive if shit goes wrong. Just fucking talk to somebody or be yourself and realize that not everyone has it in the bag. And don't trust your superiors sometimes. Don't, just sometimes. About stuff that's actually happening in society right now. Stuff that you've witnessed, stuff that you've noticed, you know, all that stuff, so you can remain in the same context and mood. But when you're going through military training, obviously, you don't want to lose yourself, you know? That's not what they're doing. That's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to break you down. They're trying to build you up and tell you that you're good enough. They're not trying to break your stuff down. They're not trying to break you down and build you up again. They're trying to break your habits, your own habits that you put in front of yourself to be able to limit your abilities. Your potential is so much more than you actually think it is. Your potential is so much more than you realize at all. And you don't realize it because you keep constantly trying to connect yourself with people who you think are amazing when they're actually just trying to get by. And that's the way things go. That's the way things go. When you don't invest in yourself, and you don't invest in your community, and you don't invest in the people you love, then you get zilch, you get nada, you get zero. So the more you get zero, the more you realize that zero isn't nothing either. It's a charity. It's a place that helps. It's a thing that helps you along your way. And the more that those things happen, the less we can put towards actually building your career when you get one. Really realizing that both sides work together constantly. They all drink together when they go home. All of them do. Trump, Obama, Michelle, Bush, a whole bunch of different dudes. All of them. Bush Sr. probably still drinks in his grave. A bunch of people. So it's like... they're all friends, okay? They're all friends because they all made a club and they all wanted to change the future, okay? That's what they wanted to do, all right? That's not what they always do, because sometimes I see stuff that they should have done that would have been way more amazing, like making a diverse economy and realizing that everyone needs something and everyone says something and everyone does something. You know? Like, we're not cavemen. We're not savages anymore. Stop going back to that notion, all right? Stop saying that notion. No one is a savage. They all have reasons for the stuff they do. Like, those autistic kids, though, they're savage. They got some evil jokes. So evil. Like, so evil. Like, such bad stuff. So, just, like, realize that. And be yourself, because, like, you never know when it ends. And you never know when people are just there to help. Because that's the point of return. That's the point of redemption. The point where you thought you couldn't come back from it. You thought you couldn't go there. You thought you couldn't talk to that girl. But you can. And you will. You thought you couldn't change your life for the better. You thought you couldn't stop selling all those stupid fucking pills and bullshit. You thought you couldn't stop selling things for yourself or being something, and realizing that eventually all you're gonna be doing is this exact same thing, but with like mounds and mounds of product and flatbeds of fucking trucks and shit, and making way more money than you could possibly ever fucking imagine. And all you get is a slap on the wrist and a $200 fine. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, making like such bank that like dudes would like die to be you. Dudes would like stop in their tracks and be like, I want to be him now. Like, like, just realize that, man. They got so much stuff out there, so many people, so many opportunities to absolutely succeed. And I may say it because I might have drank a daiquiri earlier, but hey, be yourself. And this means I'm doing nothing, alright? This means I'm doing absolutely nothing. And I believe in you. You're amazing. Have a good day.